Drop back. There's a lot, boy. Yep. Need help. Joel's low. I got him.
Fight, boys. Perfect. It's game
Ricky. He cooked too.
Come on, AAU. You don't want this, bro. You guys aren't ready.
Drop back. Go and cover.
I'm just swinging.
To the right, guys. To the right.
Yeah, he cooked. Ricky, or Tequila, whatever fuck. He cooked too.
Another guy down.
Professor.
1-1-1.
Oh, good. He threw another one. Watch out.
On the right side.
Push him.
Dog shit.
Let's go.
You have to get pinched, bro.
I'm with y'all. Let's go.
He's on fire.
I'm with y'all. Are we in there?
He cooked.
He's throwing the
Pull back from the door.
Pretty Ricky.
Pull back from the door.
Trap him. Fuck me.
I got trapped him, dude.
Pull back.
He's done.
Disengage.
Yeah, disengage.
We got multiple. Grab him.
I'm jamming.
Oh shit, to the right.
Also,
Behind us.
Drop it on me. Watch out.
Behind us.
I got blown up because I was on bleed.
On me.
I couldn't see shit.
I got 3 on me, guys. 3.
Come to me. I'm back here with the shrapnel. I got you, Cole. I'm with you.
I got him.
I'm with you, Cole. Let's get it. Keep.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's your boy DeadEyeLotus, back with another banger, man. Before we get into today's topic, I just want to say thank you. We reached 1,000 subscribers, a huge milestone to the channel, guys. I cannot believe it. I celebrated live on stream by revealing my face and by giving away a $25 PSN gift card to one lucky subscriber. Shout out to you, Lucky Ninja 25, for winning the giveaway. If you happen to miss that video for any particular reason, I'll leave the link down in the description below. And if you're new to the channel, yo, welcome. You are no longer lost, baby. You are now found. Welcome to the channel. I'd like to have you. And with that being said, let's move on to today's topic. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a powerful support pestilence build that hits really hard and supports your comrades in getting the job done. This build revolves around particularly in status effects and can really be a problem to your opponent if taken lightly. Now, one quick notable mention is that this isn't a DPS build that you want to play up close. It's a support status build meant to assist by applying as much status effects as possible and finishing the job with the plague of the outcast or allowing your teammates to wipe them off. It's super effective against those skill build players. You can beam them from far before they even shoot a fire sticky bomb, because range is going to be its biggest counter, and what better way to throw status effects and pestilence ticks back to your opponent before they get the drop on you, right? Now, it's a solid B in the raw DPS category, but it still suffices. There is one big weakness to the build, however, and I will get into that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the build. First and foremost, we're going to start off with the primary weapon, which is obviously the exotic pestilence LMG. I'm sitting for max attributes all around the board with this baby. Max LMG damage, damage to target out of cover, and max damage to armor. But the spotlight of the gun is this talent right here, Plague of the Outcast. Hits apply a debuff dealing 100% weapon damage over 10 seconds. And this stacks up to 50 times. Whenever an enemy dies with this debuff, all stacks are transferred to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. So pretty much with the pestilence ticks, you want to create as many ticks as possible onto your opponent in order to have them transfer onto their allies and carry on from there, right? But I came up with an idea to apply not only the pestilence ticks but also inflicting as much status as possible, so that no matter who you are and what situation, you have that additional support onto the player so that your teammates can jump in front of you and finish off the kill, right? Secondary weapon is the FAMAS. Only if I do need to reload my gun, I can swap to this at a moment's notice and rapid fire into my opponent if they're at one shot or whatever the case may be. Max AR damage, 18.5% health damage, max damage target out of cover, which is really important. And the talent that I'm going for is measured. The top half of the magazine has 20% rate of fire and negative 30% weapon damage, and the bottom half of the mag has negative 20% rate of fire and 30% total weapon damage. You don't have to use measured, it can really be anything at all. I don't recommend to apply in sync, however, simply because we are not going to be utilizing a shield with this, so you won't have that bonus 30% weapon damage. But other than that, feel free to use any talent in the game. And before we get into the specialization, I want to talk about the gear. First piece is the mask, a golden gear brand set to be exact. This one piece alone will grant you 10% status effects, which is really handy for the chest talent that we're going to be utilizing. I am sitting for a max blue core attribute on top, 10% status effects that I did roll, 6% critical hit chance, and a max critical hit damage mod. Now, moving on to the highlight of this build, we got the Grupo Sombra SA for that 15% critical hit damage, but the main spotlight of this piece is this talent here, Trauma. Applies blind to an enemy who is hit in the head, and the cooldown is for 30 seconds, and applies bleed to an enemy that's hit in the chest, and the cooldown is also for 30 seconds. Now, the reason why I decided to go with Trauma is because, number one, since we are playing at range, it wouldn't make sense to apply the Ridgeway's chest piece because there is a range restriction onto the bleed. Not just only that, but it's also a very risky position to put yourself in for a support build. And if you are in the front lines, you run the risk of getting wiped really fast by those high caliber intimidate builds and etc. So I wanted to create a bit of survivability by applying range onto this playstyle, and I feel like Trauma was the best option for this. I am sitting for 14.6% weapon damage, 8% weapon handling. Don't sleep on this attribute for an LMG build, because weapon handling is correlated to 4 of the weapon statistics, which are weapon swap speed, reload speed, which is super good for light machine guns because they take such a long time to reload, stability, and accuracy. I do have a max critical hit damage into the piece as well, and a max critical hit damage just to raise a bit more raw DPS as I am applying those pestilence ticks onto the opponent. Moving on to the holster, we got the first piece, Walker and Harris Co. for that 5% weapon damage, and I do have max attributes all around weapon damage, max crit chance, and a max critical hit damage. And for the backpack, we got the last Walker and Harris coat for that 5% damage to armor, 14.2% weapon damage, 11.7% critical hit damage, max weapon handling, 11.9% critical hit damage mod, and the talent that we're going for is Wicked. Applying a status effect increases your total weapon damage by 18% for 20 seconds. Now, since we are playing Wicked, there is a substitute that you can use, which is the name Golden Gear backpack called the Anarchist Cookbook that grants you perfectly Wicked. But comparing and contrasting from the normal version and the perfect version, the only difference is it raises the duration of the weapon damage instead of the actual weapon damage stat. So therefore, I felt like it wasn't too much of a deal breaker. Like, if you really want to have 7 additional seconds onto your build, you can. But personally for me, I wanted to not utilize this and wanted to rock a Walker and Harris coat backpack because I didn't have a strong Walker and Harris mask to substitute for the backpack. Now moving on to the gloves, we got the Contractor's gloves. Reason why for this is that 8% damage to armor. Now quick mention right here, in a Pestilence build, you do not want to go for critical hit chance and damage. It's all about the Pestilence ticks, and the only variables that increases those ticks are number 1, weapon damage. So the more red core attributes you have onto the build, the better. Number 2, multiplicative damage such as damage to armor, damage target out of cover, and finally backpack and chest talent. So if you have multiplicative damage in there as well, more weapon damage increases. All of that combined together is going to increase your final ticks onto the opponent. And for the knee pads, we got the Fox's Prayer for that damage target out of cover. Helps us out with those Pestilence ticks at the final result. I do have a max blue core attribute on top and a 12% critical hit damage on the bottom. Now, at a quick glance, as you can see, I have only 2 status effects onto the pieces, but including the one piece golden, it's gonna bump us up to 30%. And I've kind of mixed and matched and did some testing, and I realized you don't really need to have a tons of status effects. Like, sure, it'll keep blind and bleed longer, but the main focal point is just to apply those status effects and to obtain Wicked as soon as possible, and then just keep on pounding away with the Pestilence ticks. And in the whole hubba bubba during that duration, you will most likely have your teammates with you, since you're going to be supporting them, and they'll help you assist in getting the job done. Now moving on to the skills, there's 2 particular ones that I think is really synergized with this build. First one is going to be the decoy for the ghost infiltration tactic. Because you're going to be beaming players from range, you don't want to be spotted by being detected as that player who's the one creating those status effects to them, right? So therefore, you want to be a ghost, have no nameplate above your head, keep them blind and bled for as long as possible. They can't see. By that time, you're still chucking away tons of Pestilence ticks onto their body, and your teammates are also helping out with DPS as well. So by that time, the player is most likely going to be dead. The second skill is going to be a burn sticky bomb. I love this skill, guys. I feel like it really synergizes really well because you got the blind, bleed, and the Pestilence ticks. 4 status effects going out at the same time. Insane. Unless it got fully protected hazard protection, they're going to be suffering under this umbrella, and it's really fun to use in this skill patch middle. I get bombarded with mortars, shrapnel traps, you know, the whole 9, and it's a pretty good reliever to take a break from DPS and actually playing a build that can support my teammates with these status effects. Now, before we get into the weapon statistics, I do want to make one really important mention to the specialization. Highly recommend the firewall because this is the weakness that this build lies: survivability. In the midst of applying trauma, the sticky bomb, all of this jazz, you are going to be under the grasp of regenerating your armor. I've tried the gunner medkit, which is really good because you can benefit from all those perks onto the tree, the weapon handling, bonus armor, all of that stuff. But your own survivability is also crucial, because if you pop one med kit and 2 seconds later you start getting shot again, like, what's the point? Therefore, I feel like using the firewall is the best in slot, but you know, I'll leave that up to you guys. Now let's move on to the weapon statistics. I'm sitting for 31,000 PvP weapon damage, 22% critical hit chance, 143.6% critical hit damage, 19% armor damage from the contractors, the Pestilence, God Roll Max attribute, and the 2-piece Walker and Harris Co. and the 8% damage to target out of cover from the Fox's Prayer. And I do have a bit of these weapon handling stats such as reload time, accuracy, stability, and a 16% weapon swap speed. So yeah guys, that's pretty much the build. I hope you guys liked it and found it useful. If you have, please do me a favor and smash that like button. I really appreciate it. Stay safe out there, stay blessed, and until then, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.